Welcome to this quick training tutorial on the patent-pending ProfitLocker Pro. My name is Steve Chappell, the Director of Trading Systems Development, and I'm delighted to bring you this presentation. Let's first remember what ProfitLocker is altogether. ProfitLocker is a unique proprietary stop-loss in VectorVest that creates, as it mentions, a unique ratcheting stop that adjusts in real time according to your profit and loss specifications. So you can specify a target gain at which you'd like to achieve, say 30%, and also a line in the sand stop loss that you're willing to accept of, say, a 10% loss. That way you've got a nice ratio of opportunity and your winners should outpace your losers, hopefully over the long haul. As taken from the VectorVest views written by our founder, Dr. Bart DeLito, ProfitLocker is similar to a floating stop that leaves a lot of wiggle room when you're below the target percent gain, but tightens as you get closer. It will also chase a stock higher if it goes above your target. And so just because you get to, say, that 30% target gain you wish to achieve, it doesn't mean the party's over, as it would with a traditional target gain percentage. It will attach by default a 1% trailing stop that will continue to tightly follow price higher for as long as that persists. Here's a quick example chart. This is using a ProfitLocker target of 100 with an initial stop loss of 10, but it'll really nicely display all of the beautiful attributes of this stop loss. First, we begin the trade intraday at 9:51 a.m., right where the green marker is. Notice that price initially rises, and so too does ProfitLocker begin adjusting and ratcheting higher. As price stops going up and heads sideways, ProfitLocker holds the line. As price runs higher again, so too does the ProfitLocker adjustment. And as price settles down and falls and moves more sideways in kind of a bowl, ProfitLocker holds the line until it starts going up again. As it does, eventually you'll see price really exploding, but also the ProfitLocker exploding with it because you're getting closer and closer to that 100% target. And it's inevitably going to knock us out because at that point, you're on that 1% trail. And so price would have had to keep rising minute after minute after minute in order to keep you in the trade. Or at least not fall below the 1% trail, right? So this shows off beautifully and encapsulates the words that Dr. DeLito wrote in that essay, because it's giving you a lot of wiggle room in the middle of the trade, and you can clearly see that here, but you also see the essence of ProfitLocker in that we want to lock profits in. And so certainly as you get closer and closer to that target gain you wish to achieve, you want to stay there and lock as much of that in as possible. And that's what ProfitLocker does, is try to help you lock in gains. And so now let's get on to the pro part, which is just really going to blow your mind. First and foremost, ProfitLocker Pro provides new enhanced functionality in the following ways. New enhanced stop templates are now available within VectorVest 7 if you are fortunate enough to have ProfitLocker Pro. So we'll show you a little bit about those. Also, ProfitLocker Pro can be both charted and adjusted on a stock graph, so you can visually see stock charts on your own, just like the one I showed moments ago with VTVT. And you'll begin to be able to work with ProfitLocker Pro on stocks that you trade or follow and discover ProfitLocker settings that are specific to that particular stock, which is super cool. 3, it's also going to be a viewable field in portfolios now. So if you're running a portfolio either in the Portfolios tab or even RoboTrader, for a while now it's been a mystery. I know I'm using ProfitLocker, I know it works, but I can't see the numerical value. Now you can with ProfitLocker Pro. And so we'll show you that. And finally, certainly not least, it's going to allow for real-time trade adjustments, and they can be made in either Portfolios or RoboTrader, and you'll be able to visually cater the ProfitLocker Pro to the stock that you're currently trading. And you can get in there and do that for each and every stock that you're trading if you like, and you can make different adjustments to different stocks based upon what you see on the charts and so on, etc., based upon circumstance. How much am I up in the trade? How much am I down? Whatever the case may be, it's going to allow for full customization capability. So let's get in and take a look. We'll start with the new enhanced stop templates. So first things first, we're going to go to Backtester. And so here in Backtester, what I'm going to do is just simply create a new one. So I'll click on the new button, and we will call this PL Pro Enhanced. What I'll come down and do next is build a custom trading system. Simply, I'm not going to use timing and just cut to the chase. I'm going to go into automation rules, and let's pick a good little search in here. Let's go to bottoms up. So I'm just going to alphabetize the list, go find it. Now that I've got bottoms up selected, we'll go to stop criteria, and now in the window, along with ProfitLocker, ProfitLocker Pro will be there if you've purchased it. So I'll click on ProfitLocker Pro. Here you'll see now you have templates to work with. So with ProfitLocker, it comes with some default settings: 50 target gain, 15 stop loss. Now you'll be able to choose between a variety of initial templates based upon investment style. So we could go with a prudent template, prudent enhanced, conservative, speculative, aggressive. So let's click on aggressive enhanced. It says here then a description: the aggressive enhanced ProfitLocker Pro stop is appropriate for shorter term investments. It begins with a 7% trailing stop and has a profit target of 28 and keeps a tighter stop than the standard aggressive stop throughout the trade. So you can see here in the graphic, if we look at the red line in relation to the black, black is stock price appreciation on a percentage basis, and we assume that's linear. Then you attach the curvature of the ProfitLocker so you can see the DNA of how wide of a belly am I going to have, how close is my initial portion and my final trail on the trade, so on, etc. You'll also then have the ability to customize. And we'll take a look at these different settings here in a bit, but just for now, note any changes that you make here do display and give you a visual representation of what that would do to your trade. So if I were trading something more like ETFs, 3-time leverage funds that have a lot of volatility, I might want to have a good bit of wiggle room in my trade. Whereas if I'm choosing like blue chip stocks, things of that nature, I may very well want a much tighter stop loss, assuming that I'm not in there for the long term. You get the picture. I'll just return it to its default settings, and then you'll have the ability, of course, to save that as a custom, but you'll also have the ability to choose from the current custom one that you have, which is the only one really that's saved, and then also the other templates that are there, and I would expect more will follow over time. So if I click on, say, conservative, it'll say here, the ProfitLocker Pro stop is appropriate for long-term holdings. It begins with a 15% trailing stop, more room, and targets 100% gain to keep you in there for the long term, collect those dividend payments, so on, etc. And so you can see it gives it a wide belly, because our objective here is to hold on and collect those dividends and so on, etc. Really nice. But with the DNA of the bottom fishing search, which is best used at market bottoms and they're typically low price stocks, let's lean right back here towards aggressive enhanced. And I'll simply click on finish, and now I'll select a time frame. Well, we received our last primary wave up, December the 28th of 18. So I'll click on OK, and then I'll finish and run. And I can test that idea. How well would bottoms-up strategy have performed with the enhanced aggressive ProfitLocker Pro settings? And I'd say pretty well. We have a 25% return from just December the 28th. We have 63% winners, a little bit of commissions here, but our maximum drawdown along the way was a meager 5.67%. And so I could go and continue to get in here and test and change some of those variables and see if I can come up with an even more robust stop loss. Certainly if that were not only the case for this little run here, but over any bottom fishing opportunity in the past. And then I can start to come to some really nice conclusions about exactly what I want in terms of ProfitLocker settings. So this is going to open up a whole new world of opportunity in fine-tuning the ProfitLocker to match the situational investment that you're making. Very quickly then, just to show you this because it ties together, we could move this over into a portfolio setting. And I just want you to realize it's also then, those templates are also in the Genius. So if I edit my Genius settings, begin to customize them, we'll notice that in ProfitLocker, in the stop criteria settings, ProfitLocker Pro will also be there. And so I can choose from the same templates to manage my trades going forward, either through portfolios vis-a-vis the alerts, or these will also be available in RoboTrader, as you'll see here in a little while, and you'll be able to manage your trades in real time through a brokerage using any of these templates provided. And you'll be able to match the template to your investment style. Hard to beat. Let's go ahead and close this. And let's get into the charting functionality before we come into portfolios or RoboTrader and really have some fun. So I'm going to go to a graph. And here you'll see that we have CRM plotted on the chart here initially. And when I pulled up the graph, you'll notice that it pulled up a 1-year graph. You'll also notice that ProfitLocker Pro is displayed and is checked for both the stop and the target. Sometimes you'll have to click that target on because if you're looking at a shorter term graph, a lot of times that can really scrunch down the data. So by default, it's not selected. If you don't see ProfitLocker Pro, yet you do own ProfitLocker Pro rights, you will have to come up to Add Parameter, and then you'll be able to click on ProfitLocker Pro and add it to your list. So you can see now I have 2 of them. To remove it, you just right-click, Remove Item. Next, you might say, well, what is being displayed then? What ProfitLocker does is it takes whatever the time frame is on your chart and it applies your settings that you see on the screen to the chart starting with the left-hand side. So the very first date, we're on a daily chart, the very first date it's applying ProfitLocker Pro. Then it will show you how ProfitLocker Pro behaved as the stock price went on through time. And the initial thing to see, which is nice here, is that as price rose, so did ProfitLocker. As price went down, ProfitLocker held. As price went up again, ProfitLocker rose, and so on all throughout the chart, and eventually beginning to tighten much more quickly the closer we got to our profit target, which is this white dotted line across the top. Again, I can click that on or off. Ultimately showing us then when we would have exited the trade, and ProfitLocker Pro would have done a really nice job for us with just the default settings of 50-15. Now, let's assume I didn't buy CRM, back on the first date displayed on this graph. Let's just assume we bought it on the May 16th up call. What I can do is right click, go to change settings, change the, stop direction first. Are we going to be long or short? Long the position. Purchase date to May the 16th instead of the initial date of January 11th, which was just an arbitrary date, right? Let's say I really bought it May the 16th. I can plug that in. Then it's going to grab the closing price and put that in for you for that date. You'll also notice on the graph behind, it's already applied that change. I could also then come in and get the absolute purchase price if I wanted to do that and plug that in. You won't see very much adjustment behind me because there wasn't a lot to adjust on that based upon that price. Next thing that we'll see is the ability to manipulate either the target or the stop loss. Now we're accustomed to that, and that could have been done just on in the forefront of the gadget on the right, but from the control panel. But we can also adjust it here if we like. And naturally, a couple of things I want you to see as I make adjustments. Look what happens to this line here, the actual stop loss, as I bring the target percentage down. Naturally, that's going to elevate ProfitLocker faster because you're getting closer and closer to the target. Now, if I modify the stop, that's going to have more of an impact on the initial part of the curve. Watch what happens when I bring that percentage lower. See that adjustment begin to really happen there? And you can also see the adjustments over here too, guys. So as you're in, say, backtester or portfolios, you'll have an idea of kind of what you're manipulating just by looking at these mini graphics as well. Pretty cool. But let's say we're happy with sort of this 38, because it's customized to the stock pretty well in the past. So you can draw some conclusions from that kind of data. The other thing that you can do, of course, is if we really bought CRM on May the 16th and we're just coming in and looking at this VectorVest graph on a daily basis, you're going to then be able to use these customizations to set them at specific levels. For example, let me just zoom in to say right about here. I'm in the position. ProfitLocker has done a nice job. It's beginning to lock profits in for me at this time, or getting rather close, I should say. But price is starting to elevate again here, and I'm just going to pretend as if we came into this graph every day and we're watching it, and you say, well, yikes, looks like price is coming down here a good little bit. I don't want this trade where I've got a profit to go underwater. So what you'll be able to do is come over to ProfitLocker Pro. You'll be able to change settings, and you'll be able to work with either your target gain or your stop to start moving the ProfitLocker higher. And I would say this, greed tipping, this is when you want to switch off from the early part of the ProfitLocker Pro trade to the belly, where it really tries to give it more and more wiggle room. The lower you take the percentage, the less wiggle room. The higher you take the percentage, the more wiggle room you give it. So one way to tighten this stop loss up, should price be coming down aggressively like that, is, hey, look, I'm going to draw a line right at that prior swing low, and I'm going to use that as my stop. That way, I know that I'm using some good technical information. It's going to lock in a gain no matter what. Unless there's some unforeseen gapping activity happened. I know all the edge cases, guys, but the idea is what I want to try to get across, and that is you're going to have full customization capability and then be able to come in here and continue to watch as the trade continues to unfold. And as it keeps going higher, if you want to keep making some adjustments, I can right click. I can come in here and change settings, and I can adjust to my heart's content on both the target gain that I want to achieve, the initial stop loss that I'm willing to accept, the tipping point. Let me explain this. If the lower you bring that percentage, the more reactive the stop loss is going to be. Let's say you had a 50 in greed. You really have to get about halfway to your target before it starts to really adjust aggressively. See what I mean? So if I bring that to 30, I only have to get 30% of the way to the target, and it'll start adjusting more quickly. End trail, if you got a big gain on a stock, let's say you started out with 100 and a 10, you might not want to switch right off to a 1% trail. So you'd have the ability, and watch what happens to the graphic here, the little graphic when I make that wider. See it come down and give it more room. Okay, so you'll have the ability to make adjustments on the ending trail as well, and along with the transition. I'm going to increase the greed tipping here again, but then work with the transition point. This is when you switch off from the early part of the profit locker stop loss to the middle calculation before you get to the ending calculation. Okay, so there's really three parts: an initial part to the stop loss, a middle section, and then an end. And we're going to work with what's called the transition point, which is this inflection point here where the early trail heads off into the part that you can adjust wiggle room for. Okay, so what this means really is if I take this higher, now I'm going to transition off into that wiggle room calculation only when I achieve 6%. So I want to keep my stop loss pretty tight, and I'm willing to transition off at 5 or 6% and give it some wiggle room at that point, but I want to walk away with 5% if I can. So that transition point will become effective for people that like, that idea of, hey, when I get to a certain percentage, all right, now I'm comfortable. Let's give it some wiggle room. Okay, but the default setting is 0. So right at break even. All right, cool. So I've walked you through all the settings. You're going to be able to specify a target, a stop, how fast or lenient in terms of greed tipping you want to play it. Also, how close you want the ending trail percentage to be, which is your traditional trailing stop, and also where you want that transition point to come into play. Am I okay with right at break even, keeping a pretty loose stop loss on the position, or do I want to get a little bit of profitability before I'm willing to do that? Or gee whiz, am I willing to give it just tons of room right out of the gate and open myself up for extreme volatility and a greater chance to take full loss on the position? So lots of great stuff, full customization, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of guidance and insight into what these different variables are there for. So remember, your initial greed tipping percentage is 50, your initial end trail is 1, and your initial transition point is 0. All right, so 50 target, 15 loss, 50 greed, end trail of 1, transition of 0. All of that, guys, all of those little boxes, those are for people who want to get in there and fine tune. They know a lot about support and resistance or technical information. They want to get in there and say, hey, look, I need to make some adjustments here. Remember, ProfitLocker is really good out of the box. So don't go crazy with the adjustments unless you really know what you're doing. All right, so the next thing's next. Let's go back over then and let's take a look at portfolio or RoboTrader application. So I'm going to go to RoboTrader here first and just show you that this is also the same functionality in portfolios. Remember, you're going to have the same grids. You're going to have company name, symbol, type of position, long or short, purchase date, quantity, price, return on investment. As we scroll out to the right, if you're using ProfitLocker, with ProfitLocker Pro, you're also now going to have the stop value column, which is something that has been a popular request. So that's going to, based on any adjustments you make or the initial profit locker that you use, you're always going to know in a dollar and cents terms where your stop is. And no longer do you just have to trust and believe in the magic. You're going to be able to see it as the trade keeps ticking along. You'll also then see any of the settings that you specified. Like with Square, we've got a 30 target, 8 stop, 50% greed, and 1 ending trail because that was a selection that looked good at trade inception with Square. But you will then have the ability, if you wish, you'll have the ability to come into any of these. Let's look at our next biggest winner here, LABU. So I'll have the ability to select LABU. We'll remember that we started with a 21 target and a 7 stop loss. So I can right click. I can go to View ProfitLocker Pro Graph. And the cool thing about this is it's going to remember what our purchase price was and the day we purchased it and so on, etc. Okay. So then what I can do is right click, change this to candlesticks up here above. And we'll watch this guy here a little bit. Now, we'll notice how early on in this trade, looks like price came back and we had some decisions to make. Price came down, hit our stop loss. We got in there and started looking at the minute charts to say, all right, is it still pushing lower? So, you know, right now you still have to click sell when it tells you to. So we actually held through this one a little bit, but you'll notice how it's really done a pretty good job here overall of keeping us in LABU through a good bit of volatility. Right now, however, our stop loss is still $44.46. I can get that by just hovering my cursor here. What we'll then be able to do is, hey, if I feel like this market is losing some steam, which certainly seems to be the case here over the last couple of days, what I can do is move that on up and say, hey, you know what? I'm looking at this chart and this prior swing low right here is, you know, right below $46. What I can do is right click, change the settings, snug in that greed, right? And say, oh, maybe that's a little too tight, although I like how it's under the current channeling price. So if I'm happy with that, I could just click OK, apply that to the portfolio, and it says, do you want to overwrite the stop that you currently have? Well, sure. Let's assume that I'm happy with these settings. Then I'm going to go back here, and it's going to say, all right, here's what you did. You know, for LABU, you got a profit locker, still 21.7, but you adjusted that greed tipping to 30, which brought that stop loss in more snug to price, and now you're good to go. I'm doing exactly what you told me to do. And let me go back over to the settings. Sorry for sliding around. The stop value right now on LABU is $46.39. The current price is $47.35. So I'm only going to give it about $1 of wiggle room, a few percentages there. I'm going to walk away with a nice percentage gain on the trade no matter what. And so we like that. And that's going to be the kind of ability that you're going to have the capability to do now on any or all of the stocks that you choose. And that, of course, would happen on an individual stock basis. So I've got some stocks that are up only 1%, some that are up as much as 15%, and everything in between. I'll have the ability to cater each one to my liking and my specifications based on the DNA of the stock and the performance that they've achieved. To me, this is a mind-blowing product that opens up a tremendous amount of opportunity for each and every single one of you. I hope you're as excited about it as I am, and welcome to ProfitLocker Pro.